welcome to the Enriched Wealth Podcast. We're excited to have Aishleen join us this week. Aishleen is our HR manager here at Strategem, and we're excited to be talking to her today. Aishleen, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to call you Ash for the episode, if that's all right. I feel Aishleen's a little formal for a podcast setting.
Please do.
But thank you for joining us. Now, you are our HR manager here at Strategem.
Yes.
How many years have you been sitting in that role for now?
So I've been with the team just over 3 years.
Yeah.
Now, and it's gone quickly, but very enjoyable.
It does feel longer than that. So that in a good way.
In a good way, yeah.
No. That's really good. So you came and joined the team back in 22 then?
Yes. Yep.
Yep. And before that, what were you? Were other places? Mm-hmm. Not professional services?
No. So prior to coming to Strategem, I spent my HR career working in, manufacturing facilities, which is a different experience. And obviously coming over into professional services has been a bit of a bridge.
Yes.
But it's been a great one to cross.
Excellent. And we might touch on some more of that later on. But I'd love to hear a bit about your journey into HR, because I don't meet many young people who are like, I want to be a HR manager. Like, it's not sort of my kids at home are firefighters or, veterinarians. They're not sort of saying at the moment, HR manager. So what sort of drew you to that role? What was sort of the catalyst to go, that's what I want to do when I grow up?
Yep. So
if you're waiting to grow up.
I'm still not grown up.
Yep.
So I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. So
okay,
I
awesome.
completed VCE, didn't really have an idea, and I was able to pick up an administration job in Melbourne.
Okay.
And so I lived rurally, so I travelled down to my little admin job, and it was administration, but I was supporting the EA of the business.
Right.
And so I had my little desk outside the CEO's office, and you would watch the comings and goings and the decision making that was happening. And at the end of that year, I was really certain that I wanted to do human resources, and it wasn't something that I knew before that experience. So I went to uni, studied here in Bendigo,
yep,
which was a really nice experience. And then I was fortunate enough to go back to that organisation and do a little bit of HR. So HR, like entry-level HR roles, were really hard to pick up in Bendigo, really difficult.
Probably still are now, I would say.
Yeah, the market's changed a little bit,
yep.
But then it was certainly, we need people with experience.
Yep.
And HR probably wasn't as prevalent then as what it is now.
I love though that you went out and got some experience just out there in the real world, because I think sometimes there's so much pressure on our year 11s and year 12s to know what they want to do for the rest of their life or what they want to spend the next 3 years studying.
Yep.
But you sort of went out and got some real life experience and said, that really interests me. That's what I want to do. And I think that's sometimes the missing piece for some people, is that they just haven't actually got out in the real world to see what that role looks like or what that means. So I love that you're able to get that experience and sort of nail down and it gives you much better focus. Like I actually had a year off in the middle of uni, and I remember getting up it was an early morning job, and I had to be there at 6:30 in the morning working outside as a storeman, and I very quickly said, you know what, I'd be really excited to spend the rest of my days working in an office. So that was sort of my drive to get back and finish off the degree. But that's really good. So did the degree, went back and did a bit of work as their HR manager then?
Well, so
HR?
I went back and supported in an admin capacity while some room in the HR team freed up. And so started then in HR admin, did a HR officer role, and then an opportunity came up to kind of business partner their manufacturing and supply chain division.
Wow.
So I was able to, which meant, being based at that facility, which was a bit of a culture shock initially. So, I look back at that period and think, it was such an adjustment, but really important for my career. So then I was the primary person dealing with unions and the union reps and stuff like that.
Jumped in the deep end very quickly.
And I was really fortunate to have fantastic support around me. So whether it was my manager and mentors in the business that really cared and challenged me safely, and if I ever failed, were there to help. And at the time, I can remember feeling like it was painful.
Yes.
But now looking back on it, it's like, that makes sense. I can see what they were doing, and I'm so grateful for it. So yeah,
and a strong mentor is really important, isn't it? Like
Yep.
in terms of career development and that experience and that safety to be able to fail sometimes, because we're all gonna muck up, we're all gonna make mistakes, but having the ability to have someone support you in that rather than
Yep.
haul you through the coals where you almost live in fear of taking any action because you're scared of what the outcome might be. I love that you've been able to have mentors in that capacity.
Yeah, and they really stretched me. And when you're living it, you're like, oh, can you stop? But yeah, the other side, it makes sense. So I did that for a good few years, and then the travel, I was commuting from Bendigo the whole time, and then the travel got too much. So I found a HR manufacturing role closer to home, and that was another fantastic experience, very challenging, but so important for my career and where I am now.
Okay, that's awesome. In terms of, we talk about mentors and things like that, have you had a mix of male, female mentors, been predominantly one way or the other, or?
Yeah, so mixed gender,
Yep.
Mixed functions too.
Okay, great.
Over the journey you get paired up, like I'd be paired up with someone not necessarily in the HR function.
Yep.
And that at the time I was like, oh, this will be interesting. But just their ability to bring a different lens to what you're doing
Yes.
was so important.
I'm going to ask a really simple question here, and this is because, one, curiosity, and two, people listening may not know as well too. What does a HR manager do?
Oh, HR manager does.
Because I think we all
so
have
much.
we have all these ideas in our head of what it might be, and we know that it's working with humans because the name helps say that. But like day to day, what does it actually look like for you? And we might talk a bit about the contrast between what it looked like in a manufacturing role as opposed to a professional services firm now, because that's probably a little bit of a contrast as well too, I would say, in terms of some of the activities you're undertaking. But would just love to hear a bit more about what does it mean day to day, because I think there'd be a few listeners out there going, oh, I have no idea, or that's a big corporation type thing that has a HR person. But what does it look like for you in that role?
Yeah, so HR, like I often joke, to be a really successful HR person, you almost have to be a chameleon, and you've got to be really agile and be able to change hats.
Yep.
Multiple times during the day. So, you'll be present in strategy discussions or help executing and delivering a strategy. You'll be someone's soft place to fall when they need support or a listening ear.
Yep.
You're the person who's mitigating risk. So, looking at industrial relations legislation, making sure we're compliant, making sure the pays are right, that type of stuff. So it's really...
it's a very varied role, isn't it?
Very varied. Kind of considered the chief of culture. So a lot of people will come to you, for advice on, how do we set the cultural tone? What else should we be doing?
Yes.
But it's very varied and lots of hats, multiple times a day.
So, and I think that helps give people some context that it's not just a specific thing that you do, or it's not that you're busy writing performance reviews all day or thinking, what carrot or stick can I bring out for staff members this week? It's actually, there's a lot of areas that you're involved in, and it's almost like the human side of the business.
Absolutely.
In a lot of ways.
And it is driven, like what you'll do is driven predominantly by the role and the size of the organisation you're in. So in previous roles where the organisation was a lot bigger, you would specialise in your own kind of part of human resources. So, I wouldn't necessarily look after remuneration. I was more dealing with the people on the cold face every day, what issues they were facing, what were the challenges, and when things go wrong, you're the person that's called in too. So, it can be really dependent on where you are and the size of the business.
Yep. And so if we look at that, you went from a manufacturing, a role at a manufacturing organisation to now probably a smaller business at Strategem in terms of people size. Probably a bit different in terms of the role as well too. What are some of the contrasts you found from, the manufacturing side to working with the bean counters or the number people?
Yes. The biggest change I noticed early, and it was a bit of an adjustment for me, was I felt like I kind of became specialised in managing a bit of chaos.
Yep.
And so when
you joined the firm why we were in the midst of coming out of the throes of
Yes.
COVID and all of what was going on with that as well too. So it was quite a time of change for a lot of industries, or trying to readjust back to normal as well. So,
Yes, yeah. So that was a bit of a transition. It was like, okay, now this is an opportunity to kind of hone my skills and level up a little bit.
Yes.
Because there's not going to be some chaos around to manage. So that was a bit of an adjustment for me.
Yep.
And I'm trying to think. And I think too, the adjustment from, being in manufacturing, you're producing a widget. So,
Yes.
Goods come into the factory, we value add, put them through our manufacturing process, and then a product leaves. And then coming into a service firm where you don't have that physicality of what we're working on was a bit of a different adjustment for me.
And you probably, some of the staff members you're working with are different as well, aren't you? Because, yes, there are people who would want a career in manufacturing, but there's probably a lot of other people who are there because it's a job, where a lot of times in professional services firm, you're dealing with people who have gone through uni and this is their career. Like this is, they're on a career directory, or they're on they're wanting to specialise, or they're wanting to develop their skills within the industry. So it's a different probably motivation that you're dealing with
Absolutely.
with staff members, and probably different expectations around some of that as well too, I would find. So what's important at a manufacturing level is not necessarily important for a professional services firm.
Yeah.
So, a lot of adjustment.
Lots of adjustment.
Is this the first time you've been on your own as a HR person? Because I know you've been in teams in the past. So is this the first?
That was this is the first role where it's been like the sole HR lead, and having coming from an environment where you're working with quite a large HR team and you're working as part of that was an adjustment in terms of sometimes in human resources you're working on matters that are very sensitive, and in larger teams you kind of have that ability to walk through those situations as a team.
Yes.
Having that difference was a bit of an adjustment. It was like, okay, well, where's my team now? And who are those people that I can go to for support and bounce things off of? So, it's been a different way of thinking.
Good experience though. I want to talk a little bit about small business, because I think sometimes small business doesn't, the HR side of small business, we just need people in, we need them to get them to do a job. Think of a small, maybe they've been a sole operator and now they're finding their first staff members, or they've got one or two staff members and they're growing and they need more staff members. The actual HR side of the management isn't necessarily a forethought. That when people are busy, we need boots on the ground, we need this done, we need this looked after for customers, or we need this made, or things like that, where the actual, for the owner, sometimes they don't always think about that HR impact or what they need to do there. What are some of the things businesses need to be thinking about if they're wanting to take on their first staff member, or wanting to grow and scale, and what impact that has? Because I think, even as a business owner for myself, we don't always give credence to the fact that our role changes when we have staff that we need to look after, and we're not just on the coalface anymore, or we're not just at the clients. We've got this whole other element to be thinking about.
Yeah, I think to pick up on your point, I think the first thing is when you're growing and expanding and bringing staff on, is don't underestimate how much time you'll need to invest into it.
Yes. I
think it's really easy to go, oh, okay, well, we'll have so-and-so to do that now. Oh, great, it's going to free up so much of my time. And yes, having that staff member may, but
in 6 months or 12 months, not right now.
So it's the training and onboarding of that person.
Yep.
How you're making sure that they're settling in to get success quickly. The other thing is, managing compliance part of HR. So
which is getting bigger and bigger, isn't it? Like if we think single touch payroll is there, like I'm just even talking the numbers side, single touch payroll, superannuation, and they're becoming much more of a focus for places like the ATO as well and things like that. So if you're not paying correctly, they're going to come at you a lot quicker and a lot harder. But there's also all the other side, which you've seen a bit more on the manufacturing side, is the risks for the directors as well.
Yes.
So I'd love you to talk a bit about those kind of risks and what people might not realise is actually out there if something happens to one of their staff members. And this isn't to keep people awake at night,
No.
but it is to highlight that there are real risks sitting out there for the owner.
Yeah.
It's not just I bring staff on and staff do job. There is potential risks in that.
Yeah, so obviously depending on the industry you're in and the risks in your industry and, plant and equipment and stuff like that, obviously then, health and safety plays a much larger role.
Yep.
And, health and safety is, for me as a professional, it's such a fundamental to get right.
Yes.
And, it's not just something that you need to think about in a manufacturing space. It's, professional services like us, the health and safety, mental health and safety is so important.
Which is a big one now, which people might not be aware of, is the psychological barriers that are now within workplace expectations as well, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And so if we go back to work health and safety, so there's first of all the cost of when you get it wrong.
Yes.
Are so big just from a person impact perspective. But then if you look to the impact to the business, obviously there's reputational impact, but then there's, fines.
Yes.
Now there is industrial manslaughter that is considered, a crime.
So what does that actually mean so someone dies on a work site, you could actually be charged for manslaughter.
Yes.
If you're the business owner.
Yeah, and so fines associated with that, and obviously depending on the circumstances too, the most serious result could be prison. So it's a really serious issue, workplace health and safety and looking after your people. And I don't think anyone can afford to get it wrong or sleep on it.
And it's not about avoiding your responsibilities. It's about saying you are literally that much more responsible, and you've got to make sure that you get it right, because it is there are you can't just get away with it, or you can't just go, well, that was their own fault. There will be elements that you'll be assessed on as part of that. And
I think too, sometimes as a small business owner, there's so much out there that it can kind of, workplace health and safety, it can get a little bit overwhelming, in which case I would say, lean on the resources that WorkSafe have for you. Yep. If in doubt, ask. Yes. Don't just cross your fingers and hope for the best. No, and I think you've helped support a couple of businesses too within Strategem's client base as well around some of these things as well, and just thinking contracts, employment issues and things like that, because it can be a minefield, and you don't necessarily have the skill set for that. And I mean, I know I come and lean on you, when there's staff issues and things like that as well too, just to get that perspective or that other side that I haven't thought about as well too. So I think there's just a whole risk side that people aren't necessarily aware of, and it's just also knowing when those red flags go up of saying, oh, actually this is an issue, this is something I need to be more cognizant of or more thinking about as part of what I'm doing day to day, rather than just going, oh no, it should be right. Yeah, and I often say you don't, with like human resources, and it can be so broad, you don't have to know the answer, you just have to know that something's not right. Yes. And then find the answer. Yep. There's lots of great resources around that people can rely on. We touched on mental health too. That's one that we're seeing more prevalent within workplaces as well. What are some of the things people can be thinking of or just be watching out for in that space? Because I think it's something that unless you're trained in it, or unless you've got those eyes that, after you've gone through an occupational health and safety training, you start to see the issues around the place. But it can be the same for mental health, where people aren't always necessarily cognizant of what might be the warning signs or what might be the issues that people need to start considering. So I think first and foremost, if you're really close to your people, you're gonna have the best chance of seeing the signs. Yes. So some of the signs are, are people kind of retracting from settings? Are they keeping to themselves? It could be coming out in their performance. So, if there's, I've had situations where, a team member's been underperforming, and then, when you sit down and you kind of work through it, and it's like, well, there's some other stuff at play here too. And yeah, knowing your people.
Yes.
And just looking for the signs. So isolation's a big one.
Yep. But I think that's even a great message, is that get to know your staff a bit better. Actually take them out for coffee or have just those regular check-ins and see how they're doing. From a genuine care about them perspective, we'll help to see some of those things pop up. But people can actually access resources as well. Like I know Strategem's got the EAP, so what does that look like? How can employers maybe get that going in their business if they need to as well?
So many employers now will have an employee assistance program, which provides their team members with free access to counselling services. And depending on your organisation, it might be capped at 3 or 5 sessions, and that's a really good way for people to get confidential support and often immediate support. We saw during COVID there was such a strain on, frontline services, not only like medical and hospital, but, certainly that space in mental health. And, in environments that I was in at that time, a lot of people who were experiencing difficulty couldn't actually access help. So it was great to have an EAP where we could kind of fast track them to that support.
You touched on there about performance as well. I think that's something people need to be conscious of, is there are a lot of different things that can affect an employee's performance. And sometimes when we're in the midst of being busy, small business, or you've got plenty of other pressures going on, sometimes it can just be they're just not up to scratch. What are some of the things that can actually impact employee performance? Just so as a business owner, they might actually be thinking about, it might not just be that they're lazy or they're not doing their job.
And you're right. I think when we're all busy bubbling away in our own worlds, it's easy to go, oh, Mike's not doing X, Mike's not performing. And, oftentimes when you have situations like that and you're engaging with a leader, the first thing you'll ask is, well, does Mike actually know what he's supposed to do? So, are the expectations really clear?
So first step's clarity.
Yes, absolutely.
And I guess what I think might be clear for someone isn't actually always clear for them.
Yep.
Especially when you bring on staff members. I think sometimes, and I know I've been guilty of it myself, I put the lens of what I've done for the last 10 years on someone who's seeing the problem for the first time and going, that should take you 5 minutes. But it's because I've done it for 10 years that it takes me 5 minutes, not not that the first time it took me. Yeah.
So the first thing I'd say is, are they aware of what they need to do? Is it clear to them? What are the barriers in their workplace that mightn't be enabling that? So, for instance, Mike was meant to get a report to me. Oh, okay, but was the reporting system working? Or, was there any barriers that we can control that's holding him back? But the other thing too is where...
So looking at what are the inputs to that output you're expecting from that staff member, are those inputs actually working, or were they working against, a supplier or something else that wasn't actually giving them what they needed?
Almost like the organisational factors that could come into it.
So maybe ask a couple of questions first before deep diving into that's the problem.
Yes, absolutely. And so many times I think performance can kind of get a bit of performance conversations can almost be a bit of a dirty word. And so many times leaders will come to you and they'll go, oh, Mike, it's just not working with Mike. And it's like, so have you spoken to him about it? And it's like, oh, do you reckon you could with me? And it's like, we can, but that also formalises it to a level. And, I reckon 90% of performance issues can be solved with just a conversation, a clear conversation with the leader and the team member. I'd always encourage, leaders to, when you see something, lean in with curiosity quickly. Don't let it bubble and fester. Because I think, we've all been through situations where perhaps an underperforming team member's been kind of left to their own devices, and it does have an impact on your culture, and
Yes.
it affects the people that work with them.
And we caught up earlier about this a couple of days ago when we were talking about what we're going to talk about, and you actually had some interesting stats on performance, or the impact on performance by, just putting people together.
Yes.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so an underperforming team member can have an up to 30% impact on the high performers around them, on the high performers' outputs.
Right. So what you're saying is, if you've got a poor performer and they're sitting next to two high performers, those high performers could reduce their output
Absolutely.
by up to a third,
Yep.
Which is crazy to think about. And it just goes to show you the impact on culture when you're not setting good culture, when you're not setting clarity around what's the expectation. And we'll include a couple of things in the show notes, just small things around maybe a simple framework if you want to have that clarity discussion around, because I know it's even when you sit down, it's actually saying, we're here today to talk about
X.
what you need to do. And we want to be clear about that, because I think sometimes we either don't address it clearly enough, or in our head we think, and I'm talking from my experience here, what we thought might have been a clear conversation, and the staff walks away going, oh, they told me I did a great job, rather than actually I've got to pull my socks up and there's a couple of things I need to focus on, and I'm not doing as good as I thought I was.
Yeah, I always use the analogy where it's like, they're not a mind reader.
Yep.
So if you can be clear and
if you
quick.
want to practice it with your spouse, because I find that when I talk to my wife, she's like, what are you talking about? And it just helps me be much clearer and give a lot more clarity on some things that, and I think too, sometimes we get caught up in industry speak, and you would have found that coming from manufacturing to accounting and financial planning, is we've got all these 3-letter acronyms for just about everything from, BAS to GST to, whatever. SMSF, all these things where it's, that's the name for sale. What do you know about that? And so, there's just all these things that we just live in day to day, that a new team member comes on and is like a deer in the headlights, and we're like, keep up. Where we've sort of developed that lingo over years of shorthand and things like that. So I think it's just being clear. Are we actually clear on exactly what it is?
What we need.
And the best place to try that is with someone who isn't in the industry and go, is that clear? No, okay, I'll try again. Okay, no, that's really good. So we'll include in the show notes a little framework just on maybe having a clarity discussion and how that might look different to a normal catch-up or a regular check-in, because you've kind of coming with a set things,
framework,
but without making it too official. And I think that's some of the take-home is you don't have to make everything official from the start. It's actually saying, well, have that conversation with them, have that check-in with them. Is there something else going on impacting performance? Are they, is there trouble at home? Is there a child that, might be giving them grief, or other things going on that might be impacting them, a sick elderly parent or something like that that you weren't aware of. And so I think it's being conscious that if you've got good workers and something changes, just have a conversation, because
just check in.
Yep.
Love and that. It can be as simple as, hey, I've noticed you're not participating much in meetings. Is something going on? Is that how you're feeling?
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be any bigger than that to start with.
Yep. Love to talk a bit about, we'll probably talk a bit about the risks and some of the things, or some of the mitigations and things like that. Love to talk a bit about some of the benefits of having team members on your team and what that actually brings to a business. And I think sometimes people think about it, but it's nice to talk about the positive sides as well too. So what are some of the positives about having team members on the team, and it's probably what gets you out of bed, because without team members, you don't have a job. But there's definitely great benefits to it as well too. So I'd love to hear some of your insights into that, and even if you've got a story around some of that as well too.
So for me, like in my I kind of see it as the culture will kind of determine the enjoyment that I get out of work, and that's for everyone, all employees and staff within a business. So, the benefits of having a really healthy culture is that, issues kind of get dealt with almost subconsciously. Like when you've got a really strong culture and everyone is marching to the beat of the same drum, if there is someone that's marching to a different drum or mightn't be as invested in the culture, it kind of shows up very quickly. And with the beauty of that is you get to manage it really quickly.
Yep. So strong culture actually makes things easier. Clarity makes things easier. And when we talk about good culture, we're not meaning you need a slide and a ping pong table like at Google or anything like that. It's just about saying, does everyone know what they should be doing, and is everyone clear on their role within the team?
Yes. And culture is really, do your people care about what they do? Mm-hmm. Do they care about each other?
Yep.
Are they invested in getting results? And are they having enjoying themselves while they're at it?
Yep.
And I think if you've got a really strong culture as your foundation,
yes,
everything is easier. So you're going to see less issues. Executing strategy becomes easier. Your culture is you live and die by your culture. I believe. Yeah.
Yep. And it can. I mean, there's that old adage of culture eats strategy for breakfast, but it really is the case. It really
does.
Because if you've got good culture, when you bring in a strategy, everyone's like, I can see how that's going to help. Let's do it, and they drive in that direction. Where if you've got poor culture, it's just another excuse and another barrier and another thing to rally against rather than rally for, isn't it? Really, at the end of the day, that is interesting. Do you have any examples of where you've had poor culture and what impacts that had on the business? Because I know you've been in a couple of different places now, probably seen a few different culture perspectives and different ways that it's approached as well too.
So an example where a culture hasn't been necessarily a positive one is one where there's lots of onerous rules.
Right.
So everything's right or wrong. And so then it's all about...
There's no space for grey. There's no space for actually that there's a reason they were doing that, or there was a reason that outcome occurred. If it wasn't X, then it's Y, and Y is wrong.
Yes. So and then you find that stifles people's participation. They want to innovate and make things better, where it's like they're just coming in and doing a job, and you're either right or you're wrong. You're either following the rules or you're not. And if you're not following rules, there will be discipline and there will be a consequence, and things will just get dealt with from that way. And it's really compliance driven.
Interesting to talk about innovation though, because I think sometimes too, people can come into a business and they've got ideas, or they're excited about what they could do to help, but then the culture says, no, this is the way we do it.
Yep, and this is how we've always done it. And I saw so and so that they had this idea 10 years ago, but we didn't do it.
Yep, and it didn't work out.
Straight away, those people that are innovators are just going to go and switch
I'll just
off.
come and do my job.
Yep, just come in, get out, and do you want to know what? I'll probably move on. So,
Yep, and that's probably a good little segue into what are some of the warning signs that you might see for someone who might not be enjoying it or wanting to move on? Like, what are some of those flags that say they're not actually engaged as much as they were, or I'm not actually getting their full participation or their full energy here? What are some of those warning signs that you've seen that sort of put up a bit of a flag? So maybe we need to have a different conversation around what do we need to do to get you running at 100%, or what actually lights your fire? What are some of the things you can help out with?
So it's very driven by the individual. So if you all of a sudden saw someone that was really driven, taking a step back, and like you said, their participation dropped.
Yep.
That's a really clear sign that they're perhaps looking for something different,
yes,
or not being fulfilled from their role.
Yep.
Absenteeism as well. That can be a really good indicator.
Days.
Yeah. So, and almost like everyone gets sick, and we have to care for our family members that get unwell. But if it's out of the ordinary and kind of without an explanation, that can be a bit suspicious.
Yep.
But you'll see it in their quality of work too.
Yes.
They'll kind of start almost like phoning it in. It's like I'll come in and I'll get it done, and I'll get out, type of a thing. So when you see those signs, that's when you really lean in and go, hey, how are you feeling? Are you enjoying this? What can we I've noticed, and be really specific too, like around the signs that you've noticed.
Yes.
You know, it could be, I noticed in that meeting something that you're normally really passionate about, you didn't contribute to.
Yep.
Do you want to talk me through it?
Also so exiting, obviously some warning signs, but also too when we're hiring team members or thinking about people coming on board to a team, what are some of the things you're looking at when you're interviewing and things like that as well too? What are some of the things that, and I'm not asking to give away all the mixed bag of HR tricks here, but what are some of the things that you see that are signs that would make a good employee when you're interviewing? Because sometimes we're interviewing for people who might be coming to a role for the first time, or they might be transitioning from a different industry. So we're not necessarily hiring based off their years of amazing experience within what they do, but they're actually coming because they bring a certain skill set that we're looking for as part of the business.
So obviously we in our roles, there's a big technical component to what we do.
Yes.
So that's important, and we've always got to make sure that that's ticked off.
And I think it's getting specific about some of that too, because sometimes we can assume people know things and they might not. And so if you want to know if someone knows something, ask. Don't just assume.
Yes, and with those technical roles, I'll always bring in an expert because I don't know.
Yes.
But the other thing I really look for when I interview is cultural fit. So, you know, being really open with your questions around, you know, why are you looking for a change?
Yes.
And, you know, sometimes people can be a bit evasive in how they answer that question. Yep. And so that's kind of a flag to watch for, you know, if they're a bit evasive around that. And, and cultural fit, so around, what's important for them. Normally, when you ask them what's important in their next workplace, it'll tell you why they're leaving their last.
Yes.
So that can be a really good insight. And, making sure we're always on the lookout for people that are a team player and can talk to examples where they've had to play as part of the team.
Yep. And why is that important?
Because we work as part of a team. We don't, we're so much more powerful as a group than as individuals. And, in a workplace where collaboration is a core value, if we don't have people collaborating, it tends to kind of, I guess, cause issues down the track.
Yep. One of the other things I know that we do when we're hiring, and you've done, and you've actually had a little pushback from time to time from different people, is reference checks as well.
Yes.
And when we were talking the other day, you actually said some of that's going out of vogue a little bit.
Yeah.
But you still see there's a value in sort of going through a bit of a due diligence process as part of hiring staff members, and maybe even reading between the lines a little bit on some of what a reference says, and we'll actually include in the show notes just a little questionnaire that you can actually ask a referee, so that you've actually got some tools on what are some of the specific things I might need to ask to draw out some of the information that I'm looking for, or lack of information as well. Yeah,
because it's people. There's a kind of there's a group of professionals that believe kind of references are a bit out of fashion now and they're not really worth their weight. Anyone can provide a fake one is kind of the thought process. But still to this day, when I recruit, the information that I garner from a reference check, and what you're really looking for in a reference check is if during the interviews you've kind of felt, not a red flag, but felt a bit of uncertainty in an area, they're the areas that you hone in on heavily in your reference check. Yep. And
I think too, sometimes when we're reading those interviews, if we're getting along well with someone, we can put our blinders up a little bit to some of the gaps that might be there, that if you didn't get along well with them, those gaps would be a little bit more obvious. But it's almost like speed dating, and you sort of go, they were great, they had great personality. Of course we would want to hire them. Whereas like, what about this issue? Oh, they kind of glossed over that. I think it'll be all right. And so it's making good notes within those interviews as well. And
being really objective.
Looking at them the next day in the light of, and I think too, when you're looking for that staff member, when you've got that gap in your team and you're like, we need to fill this, we're desperate to fill it. Sometimes that desperation means
Blinkers
that
can go on.
Yeah, the blinkers can go up, or you can sort of go, they're fine, they'll work out. We just need someone to fill the role. We can actually create more problems for ourselves.
One thing I know we try and do as much as possible is we interview in teams. So
Yes.
we try and get as many diverse views on the candidate as we can to make a really balanced decision.
Yep.
Because
So actually have the people who are going to work with them
absolutely
in the interviews as well.
And, that may mean they're being interviewed by a peer, or the person that potentially is reporting to them is sitting in on the interview. But those relationships are going to be so, if the candidate's successful, it's going to be so important to their success that it's like you really have to involve those people in the interview too.
Yep.
But yeah, and I'd say circling back to references too, when you're talking to referees, often what you're looking for too is what they're not saying.
Yes.
So yeah, there's kind of an art to reading between the lines. But yeah, if you're asking really direct questions around teamwork and you're being given examples of other things, that can be a bit of a flag.
Or if they keep referencing that one time they did something rather than that's just their normal mode of operation, that's probably a bit of a red flag as well.
Yep.
Okay, that's really good. Just little things to be thinking
Little
of.
tricks.
Wanted to talk about, you talked there about direct questions, and I wanted to have a little chat with you about you're someone that I've seen that hasn't shied away from those direct or maybe those tougher conversations, and would love to talk a bit about how to have good tough conversations, because I find people sit in one of two camps a lot of times. They either sit in the camp of they will have tough conversations all day long but do it in a way that gets everyone offside and makes everyone think that they're, for the lack of a better word, I'm trying to think of a G-rated word to put here, but just people's perception
difficult to work with.
Yeah, very difficult to work with, or just that's them, or they're just they just make things hard. Or you have the other side where people are either way too diplomatic and nice and don't actually say the things that need to be said. And so there's a real fine balance between being able to have a tough conversation where everyone walks away going, it's a bit like having a cold shower. Is kind of necessary, but we all walk away happy, as opposed to there's just more animosity and it just creates deeper divides. And I think for the people who don't have the tough conversations, they're scared of the fallout, and then there's those people who have the tough conversations and are just not aware of the fallout.
Yeah,
and then
they leave the room and it's in
and
tatters.
And then there's like turnover and everything like that, and it's like, well, it must be we just keep hiring bad people rather than maybe there's a part that we're playing in that. So I'd love to know how do you strike that balance of being able to have those tough conversations? And I know it's never perfect, and we're dealing with people, so there's always a little bit of mess to it. Where when you're dealing with a machine, it's like Operation A gets outcome B. But what are some of those things that people can be thinking about when they go in to have those tough conversations? Because I just see that from my experience, one of two camps, and I've never seen it really done well in the middle. But I have seen you strike a bit of that balance.
Thank you.
So,
I think the big with hard conversations and tough topics, I think it's so easy to shy away from it, and that is the worst thing you can do, because then no one ever knows how you feel. Then there's an impact to the business potentially. It's much better to try and have the conversation than not have it at all. And I definitely think there is a bit of a balanced approach you can take to get really good outcomes. So
I'm not angry, I'm disappointed.
The classic. I think too, you've got to be honest but tactful in how you deliver it. And sometimes it's sometimes, depending on your personality type, it can be a direct way of going about it can feel more natural. And sometimes that's when those styles will leave the room in tatters kind of behind.
And they walk out going, that went well.
But if for those styles too, I'd often recommend you come from a place of curiosity. If you can start by asking questions, that's often a really nice way to open up the issue
And so questions forces them to name it rather than you telling them what the issue is.
Yep.
Correct? So that it's sort of getting them to a bit of accountability and a bit of awareness as well too, which I think half the battle is awareness, isn't it? Sometimes it's either the staff member's not aware of what they're doing or what they're not doing, and sometimes we're acutely aware, or vice versa. So.
And I think the other thing too is just keeping in mind that it's not personal. It's not.
But I think too also, if you're asking questions or directing feedback, don't make it personal. So don't make it about the person or about their character. Make it about the
problem,
the process they're following, or the job they're doing, or the issue at hand, and keep the issue here in the middle.
Yes.
And for those listening at home, I'm pointing to the middle of the table rather than to the person specifically. Correct?
Yep. Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
So if you can come from a place of curiosity and not direct it at a person.
Yep.
I think that's a really good starting point. And obviously being as honest as you can, but really tactful, because when you come across it in a work setting, when you have to have a hard conversation, it's so important to remember that before you go in, if you're feeling some type of nervousness, it's like, well, we're all here to do the same thing. We're all here to achieve this one outcome, and this is a piece of that puzzle. So, I have a vested interest in getting to the bottom of this, but actually the group that I'm talking to or the person that I'm talking to has an interest in it too. So, just remembering that, you're kind of all in it together.
Yep. And I think too, the naming what the impact of the outcome's having. So I'd say, this is having an impact on customers trusting us. If customers or clients don't trust us, then they don't want to work with us, and they don't want to refer to us, and they won't think we're doing a good job. So this has impacts further than just you and your role right now. This has other areas that it's making difficult as well too. So it's sort of bringing the whole why the issue's a problem, not just it's a you issue.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I think that's really good, and I think that's something that people might struggle with, or when they're in the midst of busy, stressed, which a lot of small businesses can sit in that space on a regular basis. It's hard to pull yourself out of that and come and have an objective conversation without blowing the doors off, or just going, you know what, we'll talk about that later, and then it's 3 months down the track and we still haven't addressed it, which again doesn't help for employees' performance and for feedback too, because I think that's one thing that we might talk a little bit about is feedback for staff members as well. Every 6 months, is that good? Just to say, hey, you're doing a good job. 6 months later, let them know again, or does it need to be a little bit more?
A little bit more regular than that. Yep. Absolutely. So I think...
And it's not just blowing wind in their sails every day going, it's going to be a great day, let's go. But there's a little bit of, you need to have it timely, and you need to have it regularly, don't you? And
so you may have formal processes around performance reviews and stuff like that where, it's quite scheduled. But then underpinning that and supporting it is it might be a weekly one-on-one. And even, don't discount the value of a daily check-in.
Yes.
So, it might be that, I know we all get busy, but, when you come back into the office and your team's there, just checking in and asking, how did it go today?
Yep.
Were there any barriers? Is there anything you guys need me to work on? Is there anything I can do to help?
Oh, reverse feedback too.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And I find they're almost like little heartbeat conversations.
Yes.
If you're doing your heartbeat stuff well, you'll know stuff quicker, and you'll be able to address it and then avoid it blowing out.
From what I've read, an annual performance review should not reveal anything that hasn't already been addressed and discussed. No. And I think sometimes there are a lot of people who stress about their performance reviews, and there are people who've had poor experiences with performance reviews. But I think the thing to keep in mindful is that nothing new should be brought to the table in that 12-month review. There should be regular feedback that aligns with what happens at that 12 months. So no one should be surprised by what's in there. It should be almost a reflection on discussions that have happened up until that point.
It's like a wrap-up of the last 12 months. And I think too...
a year in review, not we're going to talk about performance, it's been terrible, you haven't seen the numbers yet, but I'm here to whack you over the head with them. Here's X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
That should be happening ongoing if there is an issue, or if they're doing great, that should be ongoing as well too. And I think I know we're building some of that into for the accounting side, debriefs and things like that when they're finished a job. But taking even just 5 minutes to say you did really well on that, or here's an area that I think you need to improve on for next time. It's almost like real-time feedback.
Real-time.
And I think that's much more valuable than in 3 months' time sitting down and saying, now I've accumulated your last 10 jobs. Here's the issues with your last 10 jobs, where it's almost like, well, it would have been great to know about that with the first one, and then I've had issues with the next 9, but you've saved it all up and now hit me on the head, and now I feel terrible, and,
And so that feedback all throughout the year or continuously naturally just builds trust.
Yes.
As where, if you're holding things close to your chest and you're waiting to get into a performance review to share them with your team members, that is...
And staff members know when you're holding back.
Yeah, they do. They sense it. We're all humans. We can all read each other. But yeah, if you're hoarding it up and releasing it in a performance review, that is the single best way to break down any trust that you do have with your team member. And, for those of us that, do go into performance reviews and, feel a little bit of nervousness around what's coming, I think, if you can flip it in your mind and think, okay, yep, we'll review the year, but it's also an opportunity for me to understand, what more can I do? Or, it's an opportunity to hone in on, what support do I need? Is there any training?
Yes.
And start talking about your career path as well. So it's an opportunity for the employer, but more so the employee as well.
Yep. And I think too, there's a real opportunity in some of those moments to actually draw out some of those things that you might find that you didn't know about that staff member, or something they're really passionate about, or an area that they would like extra support in that they just don't feel they have the skill set in at the moment, that you're like, I'd love some training in this. Oh, I had no idea. Great. Well, let's look into how we could do that, or find you a mentor or something as well to go down that road. In our last couple of minutes, would love to quickly just touch on, and we didn't discuss this beforehand, so I'm throwing it to you.
Like, uh-oh.
Yep. Just a little bit about you've obviously come through as a female within the human resources space, probably dealt with a lot of different males, females, genders throughout that time as well too. Have you got some advice for some of our female listeners out there who might be feeling a bit of anxiety about having to have a tough conversation with a male team member or something like that? Or do you see the gender roles playing a part in business, or are they disappearing? You've probably seen a lot change over the last 10 or 15 years as well too. Just your take as the human resource person on, is that as much of an issue as it was, or is it playing out differently these days?
I think it's definitely gotten better from, say, 15 years ago, starting out where you looked around the office and it was predominantly males.
Yes. Not that males are bad, but can be intimidating.
Balance,
yes.
Yeah. But I would say it's hard because human resources, there's a caretaker element to it. So I think it naturally attracts more females to the role in some respects. But I feel really fortunate to kind of say I've never felt like my gender's been challenging through my career path and where I've gone.
Sat in, like we've had conversations about some of your previous roles, you've sat in some tough conversations, you've had some tough news to deliver to people, and people who've been violent in the workplace and that as well too. So it's not just, you're not just sitting with like-minded people or saying, you stole too many pens or something like that. It's actually, some pretty serious discussions that
quite
need to be had.
Often you're delivering, for what the person on the other side of the table, it's, you're delivering an outcome that is going to change their life in a little respect, you know, in terms of, you can't discount that, a finding of an investigation might result in a termination, and then that person has a family to go back and support. So I think you've always got to be mindful of how the other person is feeling and keep that front and centre, even though they may have done the wrong thing. But if you can, deliver outcomes with clearly and with some compassion, you generally get a better outcome. You're not going to have someone yelling across the table at you.
And I think the big thing which I've seen from you, is just being authentic, just being honest and authentic. And I think that sort of reduces some of that, rather than going, oh, I have to act like this or I have to be like that. It's actually just saying,
yeah,
I am who I am.
Yeah. And I think too, it's easy to kind of come into, HR and think, oh, it's an us and them with with the team that you might be partnering with, and that's I would encourage people not to think that way. Everyone's all in it together. We're all humans. We all make mistakes.
Yes.
And I think no one rolls out of bed in the morning wanting to make your day worse than what. Like, no one sets out deliberately.
Yes.
Very rarely. So if you can kind of keep that front and centre when you're navigating through issues and lead with a bit of compassion,
yes,
you're generally going to get a better outcome. But yeah.
No, I love that. And I think that's a great note to finish off. Lead with compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone does make mistakes from time to time, and it's how you navigate it that determines the outcome.
Yes.
So, yep. Ash, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate some of the areas we've gone into and discussions we've had. And it's been great to hear from you. And as always, you're part of the Strategem team. But if people want to talk about HR, you have supported some of the businesses internally as well too. So definitely reach out to whoever your contact is at Strategem. We can talk more about maybe what that might look like, or even just a general discussion with you on some HR topics as well.
Happy to help.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. Thank you, everyone. Until next time.